Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SCA's 56th monthly Zoom presentation. We are now well into our second half century, so to speak, of monthly SCA Zoom presentations with no end in sight. My name is Brian Gallagher. I'm the president of the Society for Commercial Archaeology, and I will be your host tonight. Welcome to all our guests and any new people we have with us. We're happy you took the time out of your autumn evening to watch an SCA presentation. I hope you enjoy the show. And for anybody watching the recording of this episode of the SCA's monthly presentations who's not a member of the SCA, we earnestly ask you to consider joining. Funding for the various activities of the SCA comes almost exclusively from our membership. Just visit our website at www.sca-roadside.org and follow the links. Now I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's presenters, Sven Kirsten and Peter Moruzzi, who will regale us with their stories of Palm Springs Tiki. Ever since meeting as presenters at the Los Angeles Forum for Architecture and Design in 1992, Sven and Peter have worked on researching and documenting 20th century urban design and popular culture. Each eventually went on to their own path, publishing several books about their chosen subjects, but also collaborating on two book projects that took them as far as New York and Havana. It's only fitting then that the two authors reunite in this new book, Palm Springs Tiki, which brings together Sven's pet subject of Tiki style with Pete's expertise in Palm Springs architectural vernacular. After his book of Tiki initiated the Tiki revival, Sven Kirsten followed up with three more highly rated books on the style, each focusing on a specific facet of the Tiki phenomenon: Tiki Modern, Tiki Pop, and the Art of Tiki. Kirsten has become the country's eminent authority on the subject and continues to lecture on it throughout the US. Historian Peter Moruzzi is a longtime preservationist with a passion for mid-century modern architecture and design. He has authored 6 pictorial history books published by Gibbs Smith covering Havana, Palm Springs, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas.
All right. So everybody hopefully knows that this is a cover of my new book that I wrote together with Pete Moruzzi, who's right next to me, but I'm doing the slideshow. So come on in, just Pete, say hi. Say hi.
Hello there, folks.
And he'll be jabbing me if I make any mistakes. Okay, here's Pete and me. I've known him for a long time. You talked about it. I've known it since 1992, and I luckily still have the program from the Los Angeles Forum for Architecture and Urban Design, where we met and where I did my very first slideshow on Tiki back then. Pete has since become the co-founder or founder of the Palm Springs Modernism Committee, and has done great work in preserving especially mid-century modern places in the desert and getting them registered as historic places. And you talked about all the books he did, and 2 of them on Palm Springs. And we worked together on several of them, and I photographed for Classic Dining and the wonderful Havana Before Castro that Pete published. So we've been on some great trips here in San Diego, people might recognize it, in Paris, at the Tikis in Monterey Park. Just keep on clicking, Brian. I'll catch up with you. Okay. Yeah, and I was lucky to hire my friend Josh Agel to do the cover for Palm Springs Tiki. I'm going to start with, the absurdity of the concept to create a desert oasis as a South Sea island, which doesn't really seem obvious. But and fittingly, early on in this 20th century, there were developers that developed this oasis of Biskra concept, where you could take a car from Los Angeles and arrive at this place and get shuttled by camels up to the oasis of Biskra, which unfortunately never came to be. Other, Arabic romantic places in the desert was this town called Mecca, that was just a stagecoach stop before then. But once it became Mecca, the new store at Mecca was called the Bazaar, and the road was called the Caravanserai. Lovely. Mecca now is still one of the agricultural center in the Coachella Valley. So what did the desert have in common with South Sea Islands? Palms and sands. So anyway, so we had palms and sand, and instead of the ocean, we have swimming pools in Palm Springs. And of course, in both places, in the islands and here in the desert, we have the spirit of vacation. Everybody is happy in Hawaii, so why not be happy in Palm Springs? That's okay. Somebody who realized that early on was the band leader Horace Heidt, who opened a place in the valley called Horace Heidt's Magnolia Estates, which he divided. Oh, this is, by the way, this is one of my favorite slides that I ever shot for the guardhouse at Horace Heidt's Country Club Estates with these two tiki guards. So he divided this property into two parts. One was Hawaii, and the other one was Palm Springs. So you could, own a place on Kalakaua Avenue in the San Fernando Valley, of course, or next in the Palm Springs section on Palm Canyon Drive, next, which was even divided into El Mirador, and Cathedral City, and the Lone Palm. The Lone Palm being the hotel that Heights owned in Palm Springs a while. So the preeminent way of bringing Hawaiian style to the desert was the native feast known as the luau. And it caught on Palm Springs so much that Maytime and partially pronounced the luau season. So everybody used the motto, let's have a luau. All the hotels in town, like the Riviera and the Oasis Hotel, the Ranch Club, they all had to have luau's. And of course, the participants all had to wear the appropriate outfits. And South Sea Island costume was mandatory at these luau's. And be they at realtors, organizations, get-togethers like this one, or next at high schools and at women's like diapers. Everybody was doing luau's, but one luau, greatest luau of them all, at the Desert Air Hotel. People were coming from all over America to this luau because not only was the Desert Air a beautiful modernist desert hotel, but also it had this giant airfield, which Hank Gogarty, used as the luau grounds. It actually was the feeding of the thousand. It was sort of the what's that festival called again that you?
Desert Circus?
No, the Coachella.
Music festival?
Yeah, the Coachella Music Festival of its time, in a way. Everybody had fun, and there was plenty of food. And what really then kicked things into gear was the 50th statehood of Hawaii.
1959.
In 1959. I'm not using dates. Everything, it's uncanny how all of this really happened between 1955 and 1965. It's so compressed that the dates are almost arbitrary because, well, another great contributor to the popularity of the whole Hawaiian craze was this guy named Lawrence Welk, who also had a home in Palm Springs, like many V and celebrities. He had in 1960, I remember that he had this a special on television that was watched by millions. So at that time, mentioning Lawrence Welk, Venetian was the domain mostly of the establishment, of the established generation. There weren't any hipsters. These folks like this were usually seen at Dawn, the beachcombers in Palm Springs, where you could get all these great libations. Among them, the Navy grog, which we can see here on several in front of, wait, that was too fast. In front of several people with the ice cone around the straw at Dawn, the beachcombers. So this is the Dawn, the beachcomber Palm Springs, which took the shape in 1962 when it was refurbished. Oh, well, first we got to talk about who opened it. It was Dawn Beach's wife and partner, Sunny Sund, who opened the beachcomber in 1953, while Dawn himself had already decamped. So Dawn, was very instrumental in creating a celebrity clientele for his restaurant. Here is Joan Crawford at the Hollywood Beachcomber. Here she's at the Palm Springs Beachcomber with the current general manager, Ray Fine, who here is touting the qualities of Dawn the Beachcomber in his parade cart in front of the Beachcomber entrance. So what more can be said of Dawn the Beachcomber? It's a Palm Springs institution. That's the gathering place of desert society, the place to be seen. As simple truth, yada, 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 no place is further in. And that was the status of Dawn the Beachcomber in Palm Springs. Cheers. And just like the Hollywood Beachcomber, Palm Springs Beachcomber had a rack with bamboo tubes for the celebrity guests. And here we are at the Palm Springs Beachcomber with that chopstick tube rack in the back, and with maybe you can see all the Alexander names, which were the biggest builders of modern tracts in Palm Springs. This was a real good fortune that I actually got to photograph an original set of Dawn the Beachcomber chopsticks in their tube in Palm Springs. These are were owned by the managers. And here, just for comparison, the lower photo is the 1953 version of Dawn the Beachcomber that Sunny Sund opened, and when it was just a small bar, very much like the bootlegger bar nowadays that's in its place. And above, we see the newly spruced up Dawn the Beachcomber from 1962, which was outfitted by a couple named, no, go ahead, blueprint, by the couple named Cliff and Lou Sawyer. And you can see on the right, you can see those torches. that are still in place today, signaling the location of the bootlegger tiki bar. And here's a beautiful rendering by Cliff Sawyer of that Donna Beachcomber. You can just see Cliff and Lou Sawyer's signature there on the bottom. And here's Cliff and Lou themselves at the, what was it called? The Lanai in San Mateo, with this great mural in the back that Cliff supposedly painted himself. And they were involved in Polynesian pop eateries and restaurants very early on in this style. Here, the Zamboanga, the Pago Pago, or I would pronounce correctly, the Pango Pango in Portland. But they made the transition tiki style easily, and not only in the interiors, but they designed whole buildings completely with the floor plans, all the way down to the tops and the beachcomber lamps that were, the decor in these places. Here's the matchbook covers of some of the key places that the Sawyers were involved in. In Los Angeles, the Luau, an important tiki style place, and the Seven Seas, Zamboanga, but also the Lanai and the Reef, which I'm going to show next. See, the Reef was the first tiki bar in Wyoming, the first Polynesian lounge in Wyoming. Here's a beautiful rendering by Cliff Sawyer of the front with a great sign. And here's the interior in classic Sawyer style. And here in rendering of, it's called the Luau, that briefly opened in Las Vegas. I took a closer look at the tikis, and I finally realized that the Luau logo tiki was a design clearly made by Cliff Sawyer. And I love finding these things out, things that I've stared at for years and years, and that are part of, every tiki savvy visual library. Now we know who designed the Luau logo tiki. Thank you. But the Sawyers were not only designing splendid full restaurants, but also here at the Blue Skies Trailer Village that Bing Crosby was a project of Bing Crosby's, and that is still around today in Rancho Barbados next to Palm Springs. When the mobile home park wanted to have themed designs, Cliff and Lou Sawyer came up with a Venetian, an Arabian, and a Polynesian look. And even to this day, these are some of the mobile homes there at the Blue Skies. This Egyptian tomb and this great Chinese modern mobile home, all clad in breeze block. And here's a design for the tiki trailer the Lou Sawyer came up with from the Mobile Living magazine, and she waxes poetic that the integration of the islands in the desert is natural when you keep in mind that both represent a leisurely way of life. Both take kindly to mobile living. And here's Cliff on the left behind the plant there, and Lou putting on the final touches on their Blue Sky Village mobile home for a friend, complete with the tiki statue, tiki torch, and rope font. The finish of it appropriately being celebrated by what here is even called a quote unquote in the text tiki party. That must be one of the earliest uses of the term tiki party. This is what today, 3 lonely Chinese lotus tiles. By the way, I did find out that these are called lotus tiles in the Japanese museum in Pasadena. What is it called again? Japanese.
I don't remember.
Okay, there's a great museum in Pasadena on Asian and Japanese culture. And they had a couple of these and they called them lotus tiles. These are kind of rare, the purple ones. But nobody go there and take them, please. It's a sacred site. What was also interesting was that Cliff and Lou Sawyer for a brief while had opened their own store for decor. But it only lasted like 4 years, and it was on in Cathedral City on an address that is not there anymore. So there's no. Oh wait, there's actually. I found one newspaper clipping off the interior of the store, and it's a combat that you can see some of the tikis and a little bit of Cliff working on one. But yeah, it's one of those. It was called the Tiki Hut actually, but it came and went pretty quickly, so there's no photos of it. And here's Lou with one of the classic Marquesan tikis that the Sawyers had made for their restaurants. And yeah, so that's all in Cliff and Lou Sawyer. Now we're going to talk about Walter Clark, another Palm Springs resident that was very influential in the popularity of Polynesian pop in Palm Springs. Here's Walter with some of his creations in his shop window. Walter had gained his street credit by hanging out with the original Waikiki Beach Boys on Waikiki Beach next, which allowed him to use Pidgin English for his ad campaigns, and of course for his name, Walter. Anyway, he beat the drum for his line of clothing so successfully that he opened stores in all kinds of resort towns. Okay. Anyway, here's a list of all the places, and 4 of them in Palm Springs. And he was also very socially active, and different things like the Desert Circus Parade. He's afloat. He indubitably was responsible for introducing aloha wear as the Palm Springs look. There were several other stores in Palm Springs that profited from that. I photographed this myself in the 80s when I started going to Palm Springs. Unfortunately, I wasn't really hip enough to the whole thing to meet the owner and go further than this signed photograph, but I'm glad I have it. The Beachcomber shop actually was also outfitted by the Sawyers and was so successful that it opened in 2 locations on Palm Canyon Drive. Okay, what do we have here? We have some happy wearers of colorful aloha wear at the Almirador pool, and nowadays at the Tropics, the Tiki Hurricane. So a fascinating find that I did in the research of this book was the finding of the Tiki Girls, which Walter Clark selected for his Aloha Week, for the girls will be selling colorful plastic lace to townspeople and visitors to help carry out the mood of the event. When I found this photo at the Palm Springs Historical Society archive, I couldn't believe that this actually existed. I mean, this looks like a Photoshop, but no, this is a real photo. I don't do Photoshop. So here's the Tiki Girls truck for the Desert Circus Parade. And so they became the official greeters for all kinds of events, doing the the classic lei around the neck. They even spawned a subgroup called the Junior Tiki Girls. By this time, hopefully you can read the text yourself, which is just an amazing fact that the Tiki Girls helped with exchanging the parking meter heads along Palm Canyon Drive with tiki torches for the Tiki Torch Parade, which at the time nobody thought to photograph. So aloha and mahalo to the Tiki Girls. And that we're talking about aloha. This is one of my pet subjects here. The Aloha Joes is just a perfect mixture of primitivism and modernism that I'm so fascinated by. Look at that great architectural rendering for it. And here are the proud presenters. Pete. So this is Milton
F. Kreis.
Milton F. Kreis. This is no, who's this again?
Well, the one on the upper right is the most important one. William F. Cody, the
William F.
architect.
Cody, right? But also on the lower right, the production designer Jean de Cure, who worked on South Pacific, and he was the you can see some of the parallels of the South Pacific decorations to Aloha Joe's. Look at that great sign. That is and that great mailbox. That was the logo Tiki statue in front of it. It had a flame coming out of the top. It's based on a Papua New Guinea dance mask. And here we have Frank Bogart, the mayor, with his daughter, and
Milton F. Kreis.
Milton F. Kreis again. So that logo Tiki was used for all their ads. And where the Tiki guards are appeased nightly with classic Cantonese cuisine. And the waitress was almost more interesting than the decor. And here we see the first photo of what's not a tiki mug on the table, but it is a candle holder designed by no other than famous mid-century modern ceramicist Sasha Brastov. And here we see three of them. Nobody has ever seen three of them together since on the tables in front of a hypnotized crowd of happy revelers at Aloha Joe's. And in the back, you can see that kind of mask that's very similar to the South Pacific masks. Now we get to one of my favorite subjects, the A-frame. Here at the Tropics Hotel, the A-frame was the Tropics Hotel had several tiki's for the chain with 5 hotels in the tiki theme, 4 of them no, 3 of them in the desert. Here it is in all its glory. The Tropics was sort of the flagship of all the other ones. And there it is, and it's amazingly so. It's still standing today. It's probably the last tiki motel A-frame left in America. There is still a Tropics in India. Oh yeah, this is just to show how tiki just coincided with the fact that Pacific Islander houses were built in the A-frame style, and the other surviving hotel of the Tropics is the one in Inyo, and it still has the beautiful original sign.
Yay.
Yay. Wait, see the T there on the Tropics there, that's a piece of driftwood. It's a piece of, just a plank, a boat plank. Oh yeah, this was at the Tropics in Blythe. It is no more, but it is a perfect example of how the talented oceanic arts carver Ed Chrisman used the palm roots as the hairdo of the tiki. It's one of my 10 favorite images of tikidom, definitely. Oh, here we have Ed Chrisman's business card. And he worked with oceanic arts, and he was very prolific. For the Palm Springs tropics, he carved 20 tikis alone, of which now I think there's about 3 of them that survived, which is pretty good. Oh yeah, that's a beautiful exterior of the Tropics Hotel with its outrigger canoe sign. Another new, completely ingenious concept. Constructing an outrigger with the sail being the hotel sign. And here's Eddie carving one of the tikis with a powered hairdo, and there it says, Chrisman created more than 20 of the original South Seas carvings for the decor of the lavish new hotel. And here's a happy resident of the Tropics Motel posing with one of Ed Chrisman's tikis, which is not there anymore. I actually got to photograph it in the 90s, and then between then and now, it disappeared somehow. But so to commemorate it for the little tiki for the title of my book. Thank you. This one is still there, which is another, it just, to me, it shows the genius of Ed Chrisman. It was this Maori, spells, but only adapting form of the upside palm tree. And here's the entrance to what's now the Reef Bar. And it used to be called the Congo Room, but that's, do I get into that here? Let's see. Oh, this is a great side beam of the entrance A-frame and the sign in the back, both by carved by Leroy Schmaltz of Oceanic Arts. Just around the corner from the tropics was the Tiki Spa, sort of a small mom and pop, which I got to photograph in the 90s before it all went to pot. Here's a great sign of it. Here's a nice rendering that, of course, it kind of exaggerates the size of it. Oh, now we're at the rendering of the Royal Hawaiian Estates, which is also in the same neighborhood, just behind the tropics. I don't call it the Caliente Tropics because that was a mistake to rename it that, and we won't get into that. But anyway, the Royal Hawaiian Estates is another favorite of mine because it so wonderfully unites modernism and Polynesian pop with these outers. A wild spring in the brochure.
These are condominiums.
Condominiums, right?
Yeah.
And these is one of the Royal Hawaiian units today, which definitely was influenced by the more famous architects like Frank Lloyd Wright and Bruce Goff. Here's his Shin En Khan on the right, and the outriggers at the Royal Hawaiian on the left. So these, I love the fact, no, that was a little fast. Let's go back one. I love the fact that these patio dividers really don't serve any purpose. They are what I call, they make for the only building tail fins, because that's what that design is really based on the jet age.
Now, before we go on, Sven, we're kind of running out of time here. It's 5 minutes to 9 Eastern and 5 minutes to 6 your time. We have a bunch of questions and chats and things. Is there a lot more, or because I haven't been through the end of this?
I don't know. I don't have the number here.
I don't think so. I think it's pretty much wrapped up.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Well, let's see if we can go through the rest of these then, and then we'll do the
Okay,
question.
let's go faster. So here we are with the building with tail fins. Now look at the next slide.
I think he wants to go to the K.
Okay. Well, let's just do that then. Here's another great shot of the Royal Hawaiian.
Brian, do you want to go to the Q&A now?
Yeah, let's do the Q&A now. So I'm going to stop sharing this so we can bring it up, though. No problem.
Okay. It's an appropriate finish on the wall.
Yeah, by the way, Sven, it's just an unbelievably good presentation. The pictures are fantastic, and your knowledge of this is encyclopedic. It's the only word for it. It's remarkable and it's highly enjoyable. So let's see what our watchers
Good, I'm glad.
let's see what our watchers our commenters say. So Gene Mercer Ballard says the luau's look like 1960s. Is that right? She's saying she looks like
Well,
the luau's took place in the 60s. Is that the correct time
no,
frame?
they started in Palm Springs. They started very early, in the early 50s even.
Okay.
That somehow this spirit of vacation between Hawaii and Palm Springs existed very early on, right? Started right after the war. In the 40s, everything was still very frugal, but in the 50s, with the greater economic freedom of America, it definitely took off then, and it went into the 60s, but it started in the 50s.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Now, Nancy Sturm asks, am I understanding that the development in Palm Springs started as resorts for short stays leading to home sales?
Well, it was actually a mix. A lot of these people who came to Palm Springs came for 2 or 3 months in the wintertime. And so they had kitchenettes and this and that. As time went on, they became or hotels were for shorter stays. And then around 1950, the tract homes for, I don't know, second homes mostly, started appearing.
Yeah, so they were for vacation stays, but then more and more people started retiring,
And
right?
that too, right.
So then when you retire, that became your steady home. That's what I'm working on right now.
Oh, okay. Now, Nancy, if you're still online, I think. I've unmuted you if you want to jump in and ask a follow-up question, if you're there, Nancy. No? Okay. Well, Nancy can jump in. Now we have another question here another one from Nancy, actually. She goes, having never been to Palm Springs, can you provide a sense of how much tiki there was versus the modernist mid-century architecture that she thought was dominant?
Pete?
In the commercial section. Well, let's not talk about residential, because clearly the residential was mid-century modern and not necessarily tiki. But in the commercial sector, I'd say maybe 20% of it would have been at its
25. I mean, it was pretty astonishing going through the old newspaper archives, and you saw, and every day you saw at least 3 tiki restaurants advertising, and then there were some places like the Tropics motels
or the Kona Inn,
the Tiki Spa, and and some of the condos,
right? Some of the apartment buildings and condos, yeah.
But I think your estimate of like 25% of tiki versus mid-century modern is pretty accurate.
In the commercial sector, yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. That's all there's a ton of comments here, and I'm going to send these comments through to both of you, of course, so you can see them. And people are so appreciative of this presentation. It's really great. One person here, Mikhail Takik, I'm not sure I'm saying that right. He says, love the legacy of the Caliente Tropics, my forever go-to motel in Palm Springs. The pool is amazing. So you're obviously bringing a lot of memories back.
For Pete, the Caliente Trop is a very personal story because Pete came to Palm Springs first in the mid-90s. And I started going here too around that time. I actually led a lounge bus tour on a tour of the tropics in 1994, and it was just amazing that because of the dry desert climate, so many of the tikis had not rotted away.
Right.
And so when my book of tiki came out in September of 2000, it had photos, it had a double page on the tropics in it with some photos of mine, some vintage brochures. And Pete was already here in Palm Springs, and he found out that the tropics had sold and they were going to renovate it in the boring Mediterranean Spanish colonial style that a lot of the rest of the town is in. So he actually took the Book of Tiki and brought it to the new owners and convinced them that they had something unique on their hands and that they should stay with the Tiki theme.
But they didn't want to get rid of the word caliente.
Yeah,
So that's why it's called the Caliente Tropics, is a reminder of what it could have
become their, Spanish Mediterranean style place. But luckily they kept the A-frame, they kept the tikis, they kept it original. And that was really the first preservation success of my book, thanks to Pete bringing it to them.
Okay,
Yes.
that's great. Well, you know what? It's 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock Pacific, and it's our usual time for signing off. But before we go, I just want to remind everybody about next month, when on Wednesday, February 19th, at our usual time of 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, Chris Nickel will present his book, Bowlerama, The Architecture of Mid-Century Bowling, which he wrote with Adrian Biondo. The book takes aim at the obsession that swept the post-war nation, bowling. More than just a sport or a hobby, bowling became the ultimate modern lifestyle for Americans, savoring the boom years that followed World War II. Now, SCA members, of course, will be receiving the relevant details of registration link by email, and others can register through the SCA website directly. I'd like to thank everybody that came out tonight, and there was a lot of you, for spending some time with us. You can, if you're not a member of the SCA, you can expect an email shortly inviting you to join the SCA and enjoy all the benefits of membership, including watching these monthly Zoom presentations. And also keep in mind that that the recording of this presentation will be available on the SCA's website. They usually have it up tomorrow morning. And I'd just like to take this last opportunity to thank Sven and Peter again for an absolutely excellent presentation. Most fascinating. Is there anything you'd like to say in a little summing up, Sven or Peter?
I'd like to say, don't forget to buy the book. $35 cover price. Available now at your local bookstore or through the evil Amazon.
Yeah, but I also want to thank the Society of Commercial Archaeology for doing their work, because I've always called myself an urban archaeologist, and I am totally in tune with what you are doing, and that's the reason why I wanted to do the show.
Well, thank you very much, and we're trying, that's for sure. Peter, can you expand a little bit on how people can get the book? Tell us how they can order it and how much it costs.
It's always better to get it from your local bookstore if it's available that way.
Okay.
And then for you, Amazon, there's always Amazon.
It's called Palm Springs Tiki.
It's called Palm Springs Tiki.
Yeah.
Right. So
okay. All right, everybody. So let's head out to our local bookstore sellers tomorrow and get that book. And you said it's $75 retail, is that right?
35.
Okay.
35.
35. Do I have that right? 35.
Right. 35.
Oh, that's a lot better than 75. You can buy two now and still have $5 left over for a cappuccino. Oh, that's great. Actually, there's a whole, as soon as you mentioned the book, buying the book, there's a whole bunch of comments have come on saying they bought the book and it's absolutely wonderful. So you have a lot of fans out there, I can tell you that. So thank you again for taking the time tonight. And I apologize to Sven and also to all our viewers tonight that with our technical difficulties, we had to resort to a sort of a old-fashioned somebody else does the clicking, but we got through it, so that's great. I'm going.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, good night, good everyone. I'm going to stop the recording now. And